Icon Comic Con presents Behind the Comic Book Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and we're interviewing another comic book creator, artist, and writer. We want to make sure that we all do this in part for our independent comic book convention called Icon Comic Con. We really want to focus on making sure that these voices are heard. That Comic Con comes to us to Fishkill, New York, November the 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Stay tuned for more. Now, let's get to the man of the hour. Chris, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Chris Sahloff. I am the creator of the comic book Crit, Constantly Running Into Trouble, and I am the publisher for Homebrew Comics, home of Crit, Celestial Knight, Bigfoot Knows Karate, Caspian Porter, and Tin Can.
Bigfoot Knows Karate. Okay.
Yep.
That's the one I caught. So Chris, tell us, like, first and foremost, like, what kind of got you into comic books?
Into reading or creating?
Let's start with the reading first, and then I'm guessing we're going to work towards the creating part, right?
Yeah. Reading, well, I always liked superhero like cartoons when I was a kid, and then my dad, I remember we were visiting some family in New York one day, and I was a pretty crazy kid. And my dad just handed me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I still have it. It's a collected edition back when it was black and white, drawn by Eastman and Laird. And he handed me that, and I never turned back.
Nice. Yeah. So it's always those good memories that you have when you first get into the comic books. It's always a good way to kind of like segue into like the love, right? Now, when it came to the comic books itself, I know that you started reading and kind of getting into that, but what crossed you over into the creator part?
Well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Jim Lee. And so I tried drawing the X-Men like in that Chris Claremont run. And I was absolutely terrible. So I gave up and said I'm garbage because I was like 9 years old. And I thought I was terrible. So I said I'll never make comics. And I didn't. I actually got into music for a long time.
Okay.
I was a professional musician for years. Got out of that, got back into comics. And in 2019, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. We hadn't played in like 10 years. We played the superhero campaign that I built. And we had so much fun that I was just bored watching TV, and I started sketching some of the stuff out. And that turned into me creating a comic book. And then I showed it to my friends. They thought it was kind of cool. I didn't know how to draw, by the way. I just started doing this without any idea of what I was doing. And my ex-wife is a phenomenal artist. And I showed her the book. And we had been friends for like 11 years prior to this. So her opinion really meant a lot to me. And we've been married for 4 years. So you figure 15 years with somebody who's an impressive artist, looks at your work, and she's like, it's okay. And literally handed it back to me. So that lit a fire under my ass. And I got to work. I started taking classes. I had everyone that I could get giving me input and ripping my work apart until a year later when I put out issue 1. And so we published issue 1, and I thought it was good. We sent out 150 copies of it. And then the questions started coming in, well, where's issue 2? And then I'm like, oh, crap, now I got to make more of these things. And
Yeah.
so that's really how I got into it. It was just sheer boredom, and then the anger of somebody saying, oh, this is okay, and like kind of insulting me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, now it's on.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes that challenge, right?
Right.
And when it comes to the comic book itself, like, take us through the different storylines. I know you said you had a couple of titles, so I want to make sure that we kind of give it focus, right? So, what was the first title that you actually came out with?
Constantly Running Into Trouble. That's
Okay.
Crit.
Okay. And what is that storyline about?
It follows the entire D&D campaign. So everything you read in the comic book happens at the table. I record everything, and then I turn it into the comic.
Oh, nice.
So
That's cool.
yeah, all the dialogue, everything you read comes from those characters' mouths in real life. And actually, it was really funny. I'm, I have I have an artist redoing some of the pages at the end of issue 5. So we're on our 9th issue right now, and he's like, so there's a part where there's a character tied up in the back, and he's a bad guy, and they're bringing him to prison, and the guy like really hates himself, and he has no reason to live. Well, they end up letting him kill himself. Um, it there is a story. He doesn't really die. Like he tries to do it, jumps in the water. You find out later that he's possessed by a super being, and he'll come back. So just for purposes, but the artist, he's like,
just so everybody is okay.
yes, it is a sensitive subject, but it
Yeah.
happened in the game where one of the characters was like, hey, like if you don't want to go to prison, your legs you can't use your legs because he's crippled. His wife died. He's like, he's listing all these bad things, and he's like, so if you want to, we'll just let you off yourself. And this happens like at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I'm the DM. I rolled the dice to see, what that conversation looks like. And I'm like, all right, well, roll your charisma check, and he passed. So I was like, well, you convinced him to do it. And so the artist is like, who rolled the nat 20 on charisma for this? And so, like, I say this like it's a very subtle thing you don't really see a lot, but for because that can be a sensitive subject. So
Yeah.
I've actually dealt with that in my past. So the artistry and the storytelling in there is very very light, and it's open to your imagination. So just to put that out there for anybody that does read the book, that part is very subtle. Um, but so when we're going into the D&D stuff, it's fun because people can pick up like on that, like who won that charisma check, or how did who failed their attack roll with a nat 1 to miss that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like D&D players. The book itself reads for anyone. Like you don't have to play D&D to get it, but if you know that it's based on D&D and you play it yourself, you'll know when something goes wrong that somebody failed something. And it's what the feedback I get and the things that I really like about Crit is that it's unexpected. Like there's nothing that's planned. There's nothing that we control. Everything that happens in the book happens because someone passed or failed a dice roll.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And the book itself.
Yeah. Hold on one second. So on this, is it through the perspective of the actual players, or is it perspective through the actual characters?
You follow the characters, so you're seeing everything the characters see.
Okay, cool. So like all your personalities that with you playing with your friends are basically coming out into real life now in the sense of the comic book.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it like one of the big things of feedback I get are that every character has their own personality.
Mm-hmm.
Which when you have 5 to 7 characters in a book, that's tough to do.
What's the longest campaign you guys ever run?
This one ran for 5 years.
Oh wow!
So I have all the games recorded. It's going to be 42 issues at the end, and there's probably going to be 2 side stories. But yeah, it was a very long game. We're still playing. We actually just started playing a Warhammer RPG,
Mm-hmm.
so we've shifted into Warhammer, and so I'm recording that too, and I'm gonna pitch Games Workshop a comic book next year.
Oh, that's crazy. I mean, it's a great way to bring a concept because literally the play writes itself, right? I mean,
Right.
you're already chewing the fat with your friends, you're having fun, like what you would normally do, but now it's like you're turning it into a comic book. I mean, that's some pretty creative stuff. I don't know why anybody would say meh to that. I'm just saying. But
Well, it was the artwork
okay.
but
Okay.
but I've gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and so now, so that's one title, Crit, right?
Yep.
Are you? What's the next? You said you're on the 9th
Yeah, so
book?
currently we're on Kickstarter with the title, the issue "He Who Would Be King." Um, it's a really important title because for 5 years that I've been putting this out, I've wanted to tell people that it's an Arthurian superhero story. Um, King Arthur in this story is the first superhero, and this is where his background and really introduction comes into play. So now I can officially tell people it's an Arthurian superhero story.
Nice.
Before it was like it's an Arthurian superhero story. Well, where's King Arthur? He's coming, I promise. Just keep reading. It's like Walking Dead when he told everyone it was aliens, and I didn't want to say that out the gate because they went 10 issues and there were no aliens, and finally it was like it was a bait and switch, and I didn't want people to think that I was bait and switching them. So
No, I mean people kind of know the story, right? So you kind of bring it to familiarity when it comes to King Arthur and that type of stuff, and people have been reading these stories for years. So it's something where they have a traditional story but a different spin and a different take, in the sense that you're bringing it from the perspective of people campaigning instead of an actual storyline that somebody had to write specifically for King Arthur. So the fact that you're able to kind of work that through, it's pretty interesting, to say the least. Now, when it comes to your second book, you said Bigfoot Knows Karate.
yep, that is written by Dan Price, and he has a co-writer, Casey. They write that together. Dan draws it and letters it. So that is a Dan Price title, published under Homebrew Comics. That one's on Kickstarter right now too, with his third issue. And we've fully funded both books. And Crit was 45 minutes. Bigfoot was 30 minutes. I think he's up to like 75 backers on his right now. So, they're both doing really well on Kickstarter. But we also have a third campaign coming, but I'll tell you about Bigfoot. So Bigfoot Knows Karate. I won't give away too much of Dan's story because that's his baby, and but it's Bigfoot fighting Kung Fu Thulu, Chupacabra with a shotgun. It's a cryptid fight fest with a dark backdrop and some dramatic. There's some dramatic storytelling involved as well. So Dan is a really good artist and writer, and he's been in comics for, I want to say, almost 20 years.
Wow.
He got out for a few years, but you never really get out of comics. So
yeah. Trust me, I know that feeling. And we're actually going to be interviewing Dan as well, so we'll catch up with him on the next episode that we air for him. And so that's the second title, right? And then so now this is under all of your umbrella, or is it like okay,
yep.
Cool? And then what's the third title?
So then we have Caspian Porter, which is like your space Amazon delivery guy, is what I'll describe him as. And he's really bad at his job. And essentially, you see him going through this storyline where he's, have you ever seen The Fifth Element?
Of course. Who hasn't?
Okay. All right. Just making sure I know someone that hasn't.
That is just shame on them. Shame on them, their cow, their whole family. That's how it's.
As I'm sitting here next to my girlfriend and she shakes her head, I've never seen it. So shame on her.
No.
Well, I know what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
So, John from Fifth Element, like the main character, you take him and you take Han Solo, throw them together, and you kind of have Caspian Porter.
Okay.
He's, a space delivery guy who just really, like I said, isn't really great at his job and doesn't care. And then he gets put into all these predicaments in space. So, like, I will say there's, barbarian women riding on dinosaurs. There's, talking robots and all kinds of fun stuff in that title. So,
is there death by snoo snoo?
No, no.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but these are some really good movie references and TV show references. You guys, if you don't know where that comes from, look it up, okay? Please.
Yes, please do. I won't go into detail on that one, but please do.
Yeah.
So that's our one of our sci-fi titles, and then we have Celestial Knight, which is our Cape book, and that's done by Dennis Valencia. It's a very traditional superhero story with a guy who is granted superpowers from a celestial. It's like an inheritance kind of thing. Like he is bestowed with these celestial powers, and in the first book, he gets this. It's a very traditional superhero book. You get your powers, you fight the kaiju in Times Square. I mean, doesn't get much more superhero than that.
Yeah.
So, those two. So we have Celestial Knight versus Caspian Porter launching June 21st, and it's an Amazon delivery gone wrong. Is what I'll say. And yeah, so those two are fun because you wouldn't think they would go together, but the storyline really works, and it's really funny. They're both good guys, so it's kind of like your Batman versus Superman without the terrible Martha scene. And
Martha.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? I watched that and I was like, I never really thought about them having the moms the same name. Never thought about that all the years.
Yeah, I mean, somebody wrote that and they saw the coincidence and they were like, "Oh, this is how we're gonna get them to stop fighting." I was like, "No, don't do that." Like,
no. How do you know her name?
Yeah,
that's just a name.
Yeah,
it's a name.
Yeah. So take us through the remaining part of the book because I want to really get into your background.
So, well, I'll let that one needs some room to breathe, but it's about Amazon delivery between the two characters. Like I said, Celestial Knight issue 2 is shipping in June, right before that Kickstarter launches, and he essentially has to fight like minions from hell. So it's a very intense story with Celestial Knight, and also it's got a lot of ties to Dennis and like his experience as an immigrant, like in the beginning with his family and stuff, which is really cool. So the character himself has life experiences that Dennis personally experienced, which I really like the way he did that. But it's him and his dog Norman who go around and save the galaxy, because Norman can, once he gets his powers, Norman can talk to him telepathically.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Everybody wants to talk to their dog. And sometimes people think they talk to them telepathically right now.
Well, it's funny because he has a telepathic dog, and in Crit we have a telepathic cat.
Okay.
So but the telepathic cat is not nearly as nice as the telepathic dog. So
yeah. It's is it like what is his name? The dog with the cigar in his mouth. You see him on
you huge nerd.
Yeah.
God, I can't think of his name now.
It's gonna mess me up. I gotta
Yeah, because oh man, the Star Wars episode was the best.
Triumph, the insult
Triumph,
comic dog. Yes.
So you are a huge nerd.
Yeah. So a lot of times people always ask like the experience that you have, right? So take me through your process. So is it like you come up with a storyboard first, or do you do the writing first? I know that in some of your books you said you recorded some of the sessions, and that pretty much writes itself, the script wise, right? But take us through like the pathway of like. I know that Dan could probably speak on his, but are you scripted with a storyboard first, or is it like you write the comic first and then you do the storyboard? Like, take us through that process.
I listened to the recording for about a month because it's 4 to 6 hours of gameplay. And so when I'm in the gym or if I'm driving or just sitting there working, I'll listen to it. And what I do is I listen until I find something that's interesting, and I'll like make those notes. Okay, so this is the flow here. because there's a lot of stuff that's just us entering at the table. But as far as gameplay, I'll make notes of this is how the flow goes, and then I'll eliminate some of the stuff that doesn't need to make it in the book, like when they're determining which ability they want to use, or they have like their round table discussion on a couple things. But I'll go through and I'll listen to it a few times to see if I've missed anything. And I always look for like a key thing, because there's always one thing every game session that somebody does that is hilarious, and I try to hone in on those things, the things that make the game session memorable, because that's what I want to have like a big piece of the book. So, like for instance, in issue 5, there's a part where Boulder, the idea they have to break into this facility is to pretend like they ran one of the characters over, and then one of them is drunk, and they just like bombard the guard shack with "We need help." And one guy, the 7 foot tall giant dude, of course, they're like, "You got hit by a car," so they're trying to like help him. And in the meantime,
they're not even asking how he is; they're asking how the car is, right?
Right. And then one of the other characters is like, "Well, I'm really hungry," and they like don't mind him; he's been drinking, and so he pretends like he's hungry. They give him tacos. They're like, "Well, we have these tacos," and he starts eating them, and he's rolling around on the ground as a distraction. He's like, "Oh, oh, you gave me bad tacos. Oh, like you're trying to poison me. You're trying to kill me." And then he goes, "Don't eat the tacos. If the cream is sour, do not devour."
Yeah.
And we all just died laughing at his enactment of this situation, because he's role playing it the entire time, like, on the ground, screaming and yelling, and it's just hilarious. And so I had to make sure that was, it had its moment to shine. And
did you roll on explosive diarrhea or not?
actually, the book is titled Intestinal Fortitude.
That's awesome.
So, like that's what I listen for, is like those moments that if they made us laugh and us enjoy it, that's what I want to really like make sure has its moment. Because as much as I write this for the people, and we do it for everybody else, like to enjoy it, this is a comic book for us, so if nobody bought it, I'd still make it, because I want to see this stuff come to life. My friends want to see it come to life, and we really enjoy the little game we play,
Yeah, and I'm sure that like they love to see their character on the pages and see it, play out and stuff like that, and then use their lines, because now it's like they're embodying their character in real life, and it's really kind of like what brings the game to like not just the game, and now it brings it into like this is awesome. This could be a cartoon, this could be a movie, this is us, and this is kind of like how and then you memorialize your friendship, right? Because I mean, I'm sure that the campaigns are hilarious with different people's sayings and stuff like that, and it kind of shows the group of friends that you've created doing this campaign, right?
Exactly. It's immortalizing our game, and it's a lot of fun. And really, like before this game, we never really. Some of us would talk and hang out, but now we talk every month. We hang out a lot. We're back to playing video games together. Like it really brought us back together. So it has a lot of emotional ties to it too. So, but so back to your question, I listen to it, and then I go through and I storyboard anywhere from 4 to 6 pages at a time. And we have a WhatsApp, chat room. So I'll toss everything in there and just make sure the guys like the flow. And then I'll just start drawing. And I finish a page, I toss it in there again. Here's the completed page. What do you think? Before I get a color. And sometimes they'll make some adjustments, or most of the time it's just a thumbs up. I don't really get much pushback. There's a few things here and there they'll come and fix. But it's that's kind of the process. Then it goes to coloring. My colorist Lewis, he colors the page, and then I letter it. But the lettering is the most fun, because when everything's done, all the artwork's done, and I have the book ready to go, we sit down for it's anywhere from 2 to 3 nights. We'll get together on Discord. We'll share the screen, and I'll have the artwork up on one panel, and then I'll have a live Google Doc running. And in that doc, I'll have all the dialogue and everything that happened at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go through and read it. And some of it we adjust a little bit because you get some repetition. And you get some things that we can clean up a little bit. And it is their character. So sometimes they're like, can I not say that? Can I adjust what I said there? And sometimes I'm like, no, you said that. That's staying. But if it's something that is a little bit, off or doesn't really flow well, we'll adjust it. But I want the character to say, well, maybe I could say this instead.
Yeah.
So, but it's still coming from them and not like my voice,
No, I mean that's awesome. I mean, I'm really interested to see some of the copies that you have, if you have any books. So speaking of which, when's the next con that you're going to? I know that you're headed to one right now, but what's the next, like, what's your schedule look like moving forward for the rest of the year?
The big one is Heroes Con. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's I don't know I don't know the name on the top of this one. I want to say it's Big Lick something like Red Lick. There's Lick in the title. That's why I remember it. That one's in August. I don't have anything for September yet. And then October, I did submit for New York Comic Con, and I have a friend that has it in there, so we should be able to get that, is what he said.
Okay. If you end up at New York City Comic Con, let me know, because I usually frequent at least Thursdays. The rest of it is just manic. There's way too many people. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I go as the first day and try to get through there. But yeah, let me know where you guys are sitting so that way I can come and stop by.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I think it's called Big Lick Comic. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm doing that one, and then I have North Carolina Comic Con, which is in Raleigh in November.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely I have some friends in North Carolina, so I'll definitely tell them to stop by if they frequent. And when it comes to like your promotions, right? And you're promoting your books, what do you find as a creator, as an artist, as somebody that does all the writing? What do you think promotes your books the best? Is it, social media? Is it the cons? Is it, what's your pathway?
Really, I've seen the most from my Instagram lives.
Okay.
My friends say that I'm the first one to do a live launch, is what I've been told. And that might be true. I don't know. But when issue 2 came around in end of 2020, beginning of 21, I had COVID, and I went to launch the book, and I had put all the promotions out there on Instagram, and launching this day at this time, and I go to launch it, and of course, because I'm sick, I forgot to submit the campaign. So then I have to go back on social media and make all this new stuff, posting. I'll update you as soon as it gets approved. And at this point, I had only done one campaign, so Kickstarter didn't approve me that quickly. It took them 3 days.
Okay.
So the minute that the approval went through, I went live on Instagram. I got one of my friends in there, and we just promoted the book. We funded in, I think, an hour and a half, maybe. And, that was with, I call it a cold launch, I couldn't promote because I didn't know when it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started sending the live to everybody saying, get the word out, and it did really well. I've noticed that when I'm on my Instagram live shows, even when I'm not running a Kickstarter, I'll be talking about something like, if you go to homebrewedcomics.com, you can download issue 0 of Print for free, and issue 0 of Caspian for free. And I'll say that on a live, and that same night we'll have at least 1 or 2 downloads.
Nice.
So I think that, person to person interaction really does well. Every live launch that we've done has been successful. Dan and I did Bigfoot Nose Karate and Crit. We launched them 2 years ago. I launched issue 4. No, sorry, maybe issue 6. I forget which one it was. I've done so many Kickstarters by now. I launched my book, and Dan launched the second issue of Bigfoot Nose Karate. We launched them simultaneously. We did a live launch together. We funded $4,000 in 15 minutes.
Wow.
So, I am big on that interaction, that Instagram Live, Facebook Live, like those things. I think are the bread and butter, because people get to see you, get to really feel your energy, and these are people that follow you, follow whoever you have as a guest on there, and they're arguably already into what you're doing. So interacting with them on a little screen really helps. So I think that's probably the best that I've gotten.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I always talk to different creators and stuff like that, and everybody has a different sauce, if you will, right? This different marketing sauce and how kind of like everything takes off for them, and kind of like what they do. Talking about promotions, right? As your books become more popular and more people read and really kind of get into the material, what do you think would be next? Like, are you looking to eventually make it into any other source of media, or is it mainly comic books that you want to stay in?
No, it'll be an animation one day, whether I have to fund the thing out of pocket and go broke or not. I've been working on. I've got a small animation that's going into play right now, but eventually, yes, it will go to animation. I've got some connections in a few different areas. My roommate is a film producer.
Nice.
So it's just, animation's expensive. You're anywhere from, I've been quoted $300 a second, for a good animation. But there's a lot of work that goes into every second of an animation. So, it really depends on the script. So it's something I've been toying with, but I want to make sure I do it right, because I see some people put out animations that they're happy with. That's great. It's you can go to Fiverr and find someone that uses a template, and they just put your characters in there, and you have 10 of the same animations just with different characters. I've seen that, and that for promotion, that's great. But if I want to pitch to a streaming platform or something like that, I want it to be built from the ground up, which is a bit more expensive.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I did some quick calculations. It's about $500,000. So
right,
just for one episode.
Exactly.
No,
like
and
when you look at what animation, like that's why animations sometimes they'll get canceled real quick, because they're really expensive to make.
Yeah, and what sucks is, like, you really want to see these things come to fruition in the best light of the way that the creator wants it to come out. And the Avatar, like the Last Airbender, and then you had the I think it's like the 2011 Thundercats that got canceled like after the first season or the second season or something like that. So and you leave the people on a cliffhanger. So I completely agree. Like, you want to make sure that you strategically do it correctly. When it comes to a lot of the things that you've done and kind of gone through the process, a lot of times I always ask people, what would you tell the younger version of you, or the person that's younger than you that wants to come into their own light in this industry? What type of advice would you give somebody?
Good one. Don't go too big too quick. There's Pace yourself, because actually I had this conversation last night. One of my old bosses actually called me and said, "Hey, I want to make a comic book, and I see that you've been doing it. some good ideas, but you know, I told him there's a lot of work. Making comic books isn't easy, and if you get into it thinking it is, you're going to get discouraged real quick. The reason most creators can't get past issue 2 is because it's hard. It's very hard work. You know, it could be easy to draw your book, your first book especially, because that's like a band releasing their first album. There's so much energy in it. You know, you're excited, but then you get to book 2 and you're like, oh, I gotta put another 3,000 hours into a book, you know, and then there's people that want this thing now, right? And are people going to like it? You get like that second and third, and then continuing on. It never gets any easier. In fact, it probably gets harder.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming up with a further storyline, right? I mean, I know a lot of like TV shows have gone to like season 10, and at that point, you're like, maybe you guys should have ended like 2 seasons ago, because the material kind of gets scarce in the sense of what else can you do, you know?
And that's a big thing I tell people all the time. You've got to know when to say, I shouldn't do that, you know? And one thing I tell every creator, lose your ego. The only reason I'm here is because, you know, somebody told me my artwork was meh. And I was like, well, my feelings weren't hurt, but then I felt a challenge. And even to this day, every page that I draw, I have an art editor, Robert Nix, who I love his art. And I spoke to him a couple years ago and I said, hey, if I send you stuff, will you give me feedback? And he asked me, do you want real feedback or do you want me to be a yes man? And I said, I want real feedback, rip it apart, be brutal. And he will still do that to this day. Now, I will say we've been doing this for quite a few years and I've learned a lot. And I sent him something the other day. I sent him 2 pages and he was like, they're good. And I was like, you have nothing to say. I was like, I'm waiting for it. And he goes, no, you're getting really good. Like, you're good. And I think that if I had an ego, the book would have suffered, because I wouldn't want to hear someone say, that's, you know, that panel doesn't make sense, or that doesn't flow right, you know. I like having someone say, that doesn't look good to me, you should do this, and then I take it, and I don't necessarily always do the exact thing. Like, I still want, you know, my energy in the page, but Crit wouldn't be where it's at without a handful of people ripping me apart, you know?
Yeah,
and I don't take it personally. It's not about me. It's about the book. It's about the story. You know, my ego and my feelings have nothing to do with it. And so I think that if I were to give anybody some direct, you know, tough love, is leave your ego out the door if you want your book to be successful.
No, I mean, it's really good advice. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that having critical feedback is only going to improve you, right? I mean, there are always going to be haters out there in the world. It's just more of, you're actively asking somebody to rip you apart, so that way you could just make sure that the product that you release is the best that it could possibly be, right? I completely forgot to ask you this, and that's on me, but I want to make sure that we get at least some of the material when it comes to your contact information. If somebody wanted to work with you, or if they want to support your books, what is the best way to do that?
The website's probably the best, homebrewedcomics.com. I've got a contact form on there. You know, you can get the email address. All my social media is on there. If you're a social media person, the only one I really use is Instagram, which is at Homebrewed Comics. That's my primary social media. I do have Facebook and X. I don't really use either that much. I'm trying to get better about Facebook. I still don't really like X or Twitter or whatever. I just never got onto that platform, and it's kind of confusing still.
Trust me, I know a lot of people that do, but there's also Blue Sky, there's TikTok, so we could always talk if you're ever interested in talking about social media, because I kind of do some of that stuff.
everybody wants me to get on TikTok, and like they send me videos. I'm like, I don't even have the app on my phone, like I can't
Yeah.
watch this.
Yeah, I have to download them for a lot of the people that I have in my life, and then send it to them via text because I'm like, oh, I would totally send this to you, but you don't have TikTok. So I mean,
I found a
it was
guy,
getting banned and it wasn't getting banned. That's it.
right? There was a bunch of controversy, and it was just honestly a headache for me.
Hmm.
But there is a guy who does Warhammer reenactments on there, and they're really funny. And I really love Warhammer, so I was like, well, I might have to download this app now. But I don't know. I still haven't gotten to it yet because I also like to minimize my distractions. I have to make 42 books. I have a kid. I have a job, and I like playing video games too. So it's like, how many distractions in my life do I need
Hmm.
outside of the ones I already have? But like I said, it'll probably happen because certain people like to send me TikTok videos, and like I said, I get a lot of like the guys in the chat. They'll send me like the my comic book guys. They'll send me Warhammer TikToks. And I'm like, I can't watch it. And the last one they sent me was like absolutely hilarious. And I was like, I need to download this. I never got to it, but I said I
Hmm.
was gonna. So eventually I'll get TikTok.
And then like there's two more things I want to ask you before I let you go, and I want to make sure that there going to be any crossovers with any of the books that you have under your publishing?
Well, we do have, Caspian Porter and Celestial Knight in June. Um, there is something I didn't say,
Hmm.
which is a big deal. So when this airs, the Kickstarter for Crit and the Kickstarter for Bigfoot will be live. Caspian and Celestial Knight will not be yet. But every backer for the Kickstarters that does a physical backing gets with we're shipping all three books in October. When those books ship, they will have a coupon in the book, and that coupon has a 3-digit code. You put together all 9 digits between all three books, and you get to go to homebrewedcomics.com and fill out a form to get Homebrewed Zero, which is a collection of short stories that only exists in Homebrewed Zero. Now they take place in our individual stories. Like I have one, it's called Caffeinated Critters. It's about the talking animals in Crit working in the coffee shop for a day with their robot vacuum cleaner, Dr. Rumbato.
Okay.
Um, my daughter is coloring it. I am drawing it. My daughter is a far better artist than I am and has been wanting to work with me on some stuff for a while. So that's really exciting for me.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's going to be a 30 page book, and you're going to have 5 different stories that will unfold in that. So that'll be not necessarily a crossover, but it's going to be a group anthology. And we've talked about crossover, how it would work, things like that. Um, I, I'm not ruling anything out just yet, but we've got to figure out how to make it work. I think we want to do. I had discussed doing like a holiday special or an annual where it doesn't take place like canonically in any storyline, but we can
Hmm.
do, a yearly homebrewed event um, with the characters. So just the discussions have been put out there. We just haven't really decided on how to achieve what we want to do.
Awesome. No, that's cool. And the fact that you're making it a family affair is even better because that's something that you'll memorialize, and it's something that can be passed down in your family and saying, hey, this is when I work with your grandpa, or this is
Mm-hmm.
when your great grandfather made this comic book, that type of thing. So and
Oh
then
God, if I'm a great grandpa. Wow.
hey, listen, you never know nowadays. I'm a grandpa myself, so I'm 43 as of the airing of this episode. So that there's going to be that. So at 43, I'm a grandpa.
Congratulations.
Thanks, appreciate it. Um, so the last thing I want to make sure I leave people with is the message, right? So based on everything that you've done, all the comic books, all the love that you put into it, what's the main message that you want to push to people about why your book should be picked up and read, and why it's important for people to kind of see your book as a series that they should be getting into.
Well, aside that it's, me and my friends, me actively trying to kill my friends every day. Um, it's a fun story that the only thing about it is it's every issue is meant to be fun and escape everything else. Um, the crit literally came together because my friends and I just wanted to hang out and get away from adulting for a while. So if you like things that are fun, entertaining, like I use these pop culture references. You've got My Hero Academia meets The Other Guys and Police Academy. Um, you know, if those kind of things, tongue-in-cheek humor with some buddy cop stuff, you enjoy that, and superheroes with, King Arthur, then I'm up your alley. The big thing about it is it's just friends having fun.
Yeah.
And I think anybody can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I really enjoy interviewing you, Chris. It's been a pleasure. You know, I have to say, like, this is the best part of doing these interviews is being able to find out all these different comic books that exist. Because initially, when I first started this, it was more to really promote the Comic-Con, because a lot of independent artists that come there, I really want to give them a chance, kind of like the way that people gave you a chance and checking out your book. So again, everybody, this is Chris. He does a whole bunch of different comic books. Make sure you check it out. I have the links in the actual episode, so that way you can support him and his campaigns. It's great to to speak to you and be able to kind of like see your perspective on everything. And just to kind of give my final plug, this is all part of the Icon Comic Con, which starts on November the 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a culmination of different comic book artists, comic book creators. We have publishers, comic book vendors, voice actors, podcasters in the comic industry, and it's all for the love of the comic, right? So make sure that you guys stop by. It's in Fishkill, New York, the Fishkill Rec Center. Again, November the 1st. It is a little comic book theme, but with a flair of horror because it's the day after Halloween. But definitely want to check it out. This is the Behind the Comic Book podcast. Chris, thank you again. If you guys check us out, all these episodes air Mondays at 12 in the afternoon on YouTube. We leave 3-minute previews on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure that you, at the very least, you like, subscribe, and support the different comic book creators that I put on these. Because they are not only putting the time into allowing me to interview them, but also because the only way they can grow is if they get a bigger audience. So make sure that you hit those buttons. Make sure that you at least watch the videos to the end, because you never know. I might say something weird and you will miss out if you don't watch the rest of the episode. So that being said, everybody, thank you again, Chris. Check us out every Monday for Behind the Comic Book Podcast. And I'm Ramon signing off. All right, guys.